Coming up, we have our final installment of Beyond the Parks this week, focusing on Adventures by Disney, Backstage Magic on this edition of the Diz Unplugged. This is the Diz Unplugged episode 633 for the week of July 30th, 2013. The Diz Unplugged is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel. Experts at helping you plan the perfect Disney World, Disneyland, and Disney Cruise Line vacation. Visit them on the web at www.dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Well, hello and welcome to the Diz Unplugged, coming to you from the Bob Varley studio here in Orlando, Florida. I am Dustin West, your host, and I am joined at the table by John Marshy Magi.
Marshy.
Swampy, whatever his name was. Kevin Close.
Marshy.
Teresa Eccles. Kathy Whirling. And back in the production nook, we have our associate producers, Craig Williams and Sean Thompson.
We look like parade commentators.
You do.
How big do you think that float is, Stan?
I think of you as the forgotten nook.
Regis and Kelly back there.
Regis and Kelly.
More like Coda and Kathy Lee.
Yeah. Well, again, I am your host, Dustin West. I'm filling in this week for Pete Werner, who was part of this Adventures by Disney Backstage Magic trip that we're going to be talking about. And, of course, we'd love to have him in on this conversation. All right, so we want to get started. We have some pretty cool stuff here in this Adventures by Disney episode. But first, what I wanted to do is just kind of go around the table and ask you guys what's the best way, like in a nutshell, to describe this adventure for people who have no idea what it is, and especially for Disney fans that listen to our show.
I think this is a great question because we've all been on one. Mm-hmm. So it's great. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to listen to what everybody else says. So that's cool. But I think that if you're a Disney fan, this really ranks up with one of the top Disney fan experiences you can do.
Definitely.
As a true Disney fan, you get to see and do and experience things that, in my opinion, I never thought I would get to see and do. So if you're a fan, it's definitely for you.
Absolutely.
I think it's a start. It shows Walt's progression from Hollywood to Disneyland. Walt always thought of Disneyland as a movie. He thought it was kind of like building a movie. You know, you see the credits and you walk under the train castle, and it's the opening scene.
The train castle.
The train tracks, I'm
castle.
sorry. And then you walk down the main street and you see the castle.
You know, Kevin, I've never looked at it that way. The way it is structured, it is kind of timed out that way.
And the credits, as the credits roll, you walk down the windows in Main Street, and the director is always the last credit before the movie starts. And Walt's is the last name on the window, and it faces the castle, and now you've entered his park. So it's following Walt's footsteps through Hollywood. He started out just in Hollywood and then moved out into his theme park. So what you get to do is you get to see and experience all of the backstage stuff that we all want to see and experience.
And hear the stories.
Right.
Now, to me, it's like you've got, no matter what you like about Disney, there's an aspect there that you're going to like. If you liked the history of Walt Disney and all of that, of the man, you've got that. If you like the theme park, you've got the theme park. If you like the Imagineering, you've got that part. If you like the Hollywood aspect, I don't know. There was something about every bit of it that just struck me as like. But my favorite was the studios, Disney Studios. Mm-hmm. That was because Disney movies were the thing for me when I was a kid.
You get chills as you're walking along that street, and they say to you, "Oh, well, there's Soundstage 4. That's where all of Mary Poppins was shot."
Right.
And they walked right there. And it was just like, that's the part that, that would sell it for me right there.
It's an immersive experience.
It is.
And you get to see, we've all heard, it's the apartment over the firehouse, Walt's actual apartment. And, it's kind of fabled, and you get to eat there. Or, I'm sorry, you get to visit there.
Jeez, I didn't get that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
They make you grilled
Chili and
cheese.
Cook, I didn't get that one.
We had sandwiches in our
We had
shirts.
string cheese.
Okay.
It's strange.
String cheese.
Club 33. They try and get every group into Club 33. This is an opportunity if you've always wanted to see inside or eat inside Club 33 to This is your chance.
And another thing I think that really you don't think of it as a selling point, but when you walk away from doing the adventure, is the people you meet, the friends you make.
I was going to say that because before we went on our first one, and Kevin told me you're going to make lifelong friends, and I went, yeah, right. This is going to be a bunch of people that we see, and we're going to have fun, and that's going to be the end of it. But
oh my
we
gosh,
talk with the people who are on our ABD
I meet them in the
trip all
park
time.
when they come here. I talk to them. Yeah, it's just
Adventures by Disney. This is the unsellable part. This is the part you can't really sell people on until they do it.
And the reason why that happens is because you experience and do things as a group that even though other people may have done for other stuff is going on behind me.
It is freaking out.
It was my mind.
We're having
Teresa's doing it with his mind. So
Are you on eBay?
he's looking up bags. So, while you experience, other groups experience the same stuff you do, there's still your own personal twist to it.
Yeah.
Because as a group, you have a personality. So how you experience things, Pete talks about being on all of them, and every time he comes back, there's a different little twist to it. Right.
You experience things with people that no one else is going to get.
Yeah, and John doesn't make friends well, and he comes
do
away
not.
with some friends, right?
Well, no.
A few. Oh, okay. Well,
Kevin comes away with friends.
I also want to point out just real quick. We talked about Club 33, and again, that is not a guarantee. That is
Club 33 is a private club. Adventures by Disney tries to get you in every trip. However, it is if a member decides they want the club that morning, it's theirs.
Yeah.
So it's not a guaranteed portion of the trip, but for the most part, it does happen.
I'm going to be honest
and
with
it's
you,
something you
most
guys had a
other-
chance to experience too. So we'll talk about that.
We've never had a trip not get to go.
Right.
Right from the very beginning.
I think one of my favorite memories is when we all went into the Haunted Mansion out there, and we all said the spiel together. That every time I
that
walk
was
on,
so awesome.
You know,
You had a group of dorks.
well, but
no,
it
we are the
was-
best group.
we had like-minded Disney
Right,
people
right.
on our trip that we didn't have to explain to somebody why we liked it. So that's one of the benefits of an ABD trip. You're all there because of, at least for this one, because of your love of Disney.
And we all feel like geeks inside because we love Disney. You don't have to hide your geek on an Adventures by Disney
And we've-
Backstage Magic trip.
I don't know about on yours, but on ours, we had somebody who went into this thinking he was just being dragged along.
Right.
And by the end of the trip, he was as big a Disney geek as we were.
Well, these are all things that we can find common threads, and especially for Disney fans, as to the selling points of this. Why we think this is a really good thing to do as a Disney fan, and it's a really good way that you explain it. Yes, Kevin.
I was just going to say, I think the best selling point you can tell people is we've done 5 of them so far and have 3 more scheduled for next year.
And it doesn't get old.
No. And people are going back for return trips. Kathy and Teresa just booked on the July trip.
Yeah, it could be the
John
best
and I
one.
will be doing the February trip.
Well, we didn't want to. I wanted to, when we talked about our dates and stuff coming up, I wanted to make sure that people knew that we just committed Kathy and Teresa to our July group.
Committed.
Just as a
Committed
warning.
is the key word.
So if you want to experience an ABD with those guys,
If you want to
that's-
cancel, call me.
How about the guys in the back? This was your first trip. So for your first Adventures by Disney,
Yeah, so it's pretty much exactly what you're saying. Like, we're lifelong Disney fans, and we get to go, I mean, it's in the title, backstage, in places that I never thought I'd be able to see. And so, you hear stories, and I mean, not details, but I've heard you guys talk about it before, and, of the stuff that you get to see, or the type of things you get to see. But it blew my mind. Like, you can't even expect what you're going to see and how you're going to feel. And
you can't even explain it to people.
No.
Even if
No.
you gave them step by step, minute by minute, you can't explain the feeling you get when you see and experience.
We've
this.
all
No.
seen those people in the park who have the tour guide with them, and they're sort of
Right.
bypassing you in lines. You are now that person. You get to see Disney in an entirely new way. You get to see like the concierge version of Disney. You don't really have to wait in line. Here's some fast passes. We're going to take you in through the back door. We're going to take you places that no one else gets to go. So it's not only immersive, but it's kind of a luxurious feeling.
I think it even takes another step up, because normally whenever you see like the VIP tour guides, they're wearing plaid or their normal costume that you're used to seeing them as in. But this one, whenever we were walking through Disneyland and we had our guides holding that Adventures by Disney paddle up, saying on there that really you could hear people talking as we passed, because they're used to seeing the normal tour groups going through, but seeing that Adventures by Disney is definitely something that's not
That
normal.
transcends Backstage Magic.
Yeah.
That happens on any Adventures by Disney trip you go on. You could be walking through the middle of Paris, and if you're following the Disney sign, people talk about you.
I'm excited to go sometime.
Before we move on, I think we're getting a really good feeling of what this is. I want to cut to the video that I have prepared that kind of gives an overview of some of the different things that you do on the Backstage Magic with Adventures by Disney. So here we go. Again, that's just an overview of some of the different activities. A lot of it not even included because there's a lot of areas where you're not allowed to, take cameras and stuff like that. But I feel like that's a pretty good overview of
great overview of what you get to do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I also think one of the things people, if you're watching this, you might say to yourself, well, that's a lot of stuff I can do on my own. It's entirely different when you have a reserved seat, when you have a prime location where you walked on ahead of everybody else, where you're treated royally.
Mm-hmm. You guys that showed you passing by that entire line at Radiator Springs.
Yeah.
Where you just went right to the front and got on the front of that ride. All those special seating areas. You left out stuff, but you couldn't show pictures from it, which was the studios and Imagineering.
Right.
But they don't allow video and pictures there, so that's understandable.
Right. You have to leave. Some places they ask you to leave your camera in the bus.
Right.
Right.
Henson, you got to put your camera in
The
the box.
guides. Who did you have? Was that Dean?
Dean and Matt.
Matt. Okay. I love Dean. I don't know Matt, but the guides make
He
it.
loves you.
They were both great.
I know he does.
Yeah.
We've always had great guides.
Mm-hmm. What we've experienced in the very beginning of these trips was people didn't understand, the guides didn't understand that we were bringing on a group of people that we knew. We had got together either because we knew them in the past or we were doing our weekly chats. So there was a lot of, in the beginning, a little bit of hesitation on their part to let us help them do these trips. But
we also had to take the guides aside and say, this is a higher... The knowledge base is higher with this group. You can't start at the bottom.
Yeah.
You're going to have to up your game as to what you tell these people, because chances are most of them could do the basic tour. Mm-hmm. So these are people of like mind that you're traveling with.
And before we go on, we do have our contest that we've been running for the last two Beyond the Parks. We have another one for this. And John, if you want to give us some of the details.
Sure. I don't know the contest itself, but I know the prize, sponsored by Dreams Unlimited Travel, is an Adventures by Disney Backstage Magic trip for two adults. It is going to be limited to certain dates. We will list those dates in the terms and conditions. Two of the dates will be our groups, as long as they're not sold out. So you could travel in February with Kevin and I, in July with Kathy and Teresa. Or there's other dates that will be put out in the terms and conditions. It includes your Adventures by Disney cost, does not include air or gratuities, but will include your transfers from LAX to the resort and back for your adventure. So it's pretty much a full Adventures by Disney trip for two adults. Backstage Magic, and again, dates are limited.
And we listened to people. We have chosen President's Week, when most kids are out of school and most teachers. We have chosen a summer trip, which is in the middle of July when kids are out of school. So we have listened that educators and people with kids need dates that they can travel. I apologize, the December trip was enormously popular and sold out immediately.
Okay. And Sean, you want to talk a little bit about the details of our contest?
Yeah, so it's very similar to the contest and sweepstakes that we did for Alani and the Alaska Disney Cruise. So basically, there's 3 words that you need to unscramble and then enter at our website, disunplugged.com/contest. And so like the other 2 contests, these are very related to our Backstage Magic trip. So I'm going to read them for the audio listeners. Our first word is HDYOLWOLO. So that is, of course, scrambled. So you need to unscramble it and then enter it in our form.
YOLO.
Number 2 is NLDEADYNIS. The third word is MIIGAINENEGR. So unscramble those 3 words, go to disunplugged.com/contest, and enter for a chance to win the prize, the trip.
I have a question for you. Someone sent an email to the podcast team and said they have been entering multiple times. Is that allowed?
It's allowed, but it doesn't help your chances. Only 1 entry per person.
Okay, so we will weed out any multiple entries
Right.
made by one person, and we will.
Yep.
Then
You're disqualified.
You'll disqualify.
Of course, if you didn't catch all that again, you can go to disunplugged.com/contest, find all the details for
Or
this.
rewind.
I just also want to just clarify they're not disqualified.
Oh, I
We
know.
will still pick them, but their multiple options are thrown out, so it doesn't give them any better chances. I don't want people to start panicking and saying, "Oh no, I put in more than
Exactly,
one."
no.
And I'm disqualified.
Panicking is actually kind of fun as long as it's not hard.
That's true.
And when you go to disunplugged.com/contest, you don't have to include the exclamation mark. That's just to suggest that it's exciting. It's in there.
That's not part of the URL.
It's just enthusiasm.
Right.
It's just Sean's enthusiasm.
I'd like to talk a little bit about pricing.
Okay.
Adventures by Disney trips usually run anywhere from $27.09 per person based
Backstage
on double
Magic.
What did I say?
You just said it.
I apologize. Backstage Magic trips, they run anywhere from $27.09 per person based on double occupancy to $32.99 per person based on double occupancy. Kids are lower than the adult price, and dates do fill up fairly quickly. Now, I also have pricing on our February and our July trip. They are $25.79 per person based on double occupancy, $24.49 for children under the age of 10, and $36.09 if you're a single person and want the room all to yourself. We have several people who go on the Diz and create a roommate situation. That's very simple to do. We can charge everything to 2 separate credit cards, so we can keep your payments separate. That's not an issue, but it also saves you, a couple $100 off the single price.
Also want to point out, too, that while some people may say, oh, this is expensive, this is a pretty expensive trip, most of your meals are included.
Right.
All of your entertainment is included, and all of these sort of backstage things are included. So you get to see and do things that if you think about trying to break this trip down, there are things you can't do yourself, first of all. And second of all, if you try to do yourself, it would be tremendously expensive. So Adventures by Disney in general is very expensive. I feel that this is actually a good price.
A good value.
Kevin, I have a question. You mentioned children. What's the youngest a child can go?
Well, it depends on your child. I think they say 6, but you're getting to see behind the curtain. And while they try and make sure that no one's disillusioned, you are seeing behind the curtain. Now, we've had...
we had a child on ours.
Right.
Yeah.
And she added to it for us.
Something? I was just going to talk about, she 8 at the time, I believe, 8 or 9.
Something.
Yeah, she was, yeah.
I had a long conversation with her mom about this before, and, you asked the questions. She said, this is right up her alley.
Yeah.
And came back and she loved it.
Yeah, she fit. It was just perfect, yeah.
It will depend on your kid. You'll know your kid better than I will. I mean, if you've got an 8-year-old who's fascinated by the mechanics of Disney, this would definitely be the right thing to do. Now, also, if you take one of our Disney exclusive trips, we've been known to add to what Disney does. We have had Disney legend Bob Gurr. I'm sorry, not Bob Gurr. He was on the Disney Cruise Line. Marty Sklar, Dave Smith, and just recently we had Kevin Kidney and Jody Daly.
Right.
And they're the gentlemen who designed the current parade at Disneyland. And they came and sat with our group during the parade and talked about the details. And
Wow, that's awesome.
And these are things that are just our group. We enhance our group.
Yeah.
We try to make something a plus for our
we also, have been known to send along little things with our group and stuff like that. We always try and make it a little extra special.
Right. Before we move on, I do want to make a correction. We had talked about after that video that certain places do not allow cameras. Disney Studios is not one of those. You're able to take cameras into certain locations in Disney Studios.
Right.
It just wasn't included in that video.
You can take pictures outside of Imagineering,
Right.
just not once you walk through a door.
Right.
Yeah. I just wanted to...
Actually, Imagineering, we weren't allowed to take our cameras off the bus.
That's
Right.
right, yeah.
But we could take them into Jim Henson and take photos there. So I don't know if things have changed, but
That has changed because we used to have to put the cameras in a box in Jim
But
Henson.
only when you went in one location.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They actually had a box out in the parking lot, and everybody had a lock, including your phone.
The other thing, too, though, is that outside of Imagineering isn't that exciting.
Right. It's a brick building.
It's like, I could take a picture of a building in Winter Park and say, look, it's Imagineering.
The cool thing when you drive into the area is all of the buildings have the numbers on the buildings are on Disney cast member badge shapes, which is kind of cool for a Disney geek.
I didn't notice that detail.
You didn't notice when you're driving by, all the buildings have name tags for numbers?
But when
It's
you're
really cool.
there, it's like unless you knew that, like to look that it was Disney, you don't know that you're like in like Disney heaven.
Right.
Because it looks
Or
like
what's
any
Disney
other.
heaven?
Right.
Now, we were allowed,
The heaven
if
room.
we wanted to take a
Yeah.
picture outside, we were allowed to get off the bus and take a picture and then put our cameras back on the bus if you wanted a picture in front of Imagineering.
And I think it's pretty obvious that this is an exciting trip, and we're excited to talk about it.
Right.
We're all over the place. So.
Yeah. So I want to, I want to start with our experience in Hollywood. We were at the we were at the Lowe's Hollywood Hotel. It was right there on Hollywood and Highland. You're literally attached to what was the Kodak Theater and is now the Dolby Theater, and you're right next to the Grauman's Chinese Theater. So you're right there in the heart of it all. And there is a portion of the Adventures by Disney trip where we take a nice little stroll around Hollywood and see some different things. One of which, of course, is they talk a little bit about the Walk of Fame and the Dolby Theater and the complex that we're in.
You can't get any more centrally located in Hollywood than this. This is
dead center.
The other thing I like about it too is, as you mentioned, is that their stuff is right there. So on your own time. Yeah. You can walk right out the door and go see Grauman's Chinese Theater. You can walk across the street to the soda fountain.
And the freaky people walking on the street. I love it.
That's something we need to talk about. Hollywood and Highland is in an urban area. It's not scary. It's not threatening.
No, it's not scary at all.
It's an urban area, and you would behave like you would in any urban area.
Right. You want to be conscious of your surroundings. You want to make sure you protect yourself and are aware of what's going on, but I wouldn't say it's dangerous.
No, I would say it's dangerous, but it's fun.
Did you realize you were just around the corner from Hollywood High?
No.
Hollywood High backs up to El Capitan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we saw it when we went behind, what was the, we went and saw.
When we went to see Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel. The concerts for Jimmy Kimmel are actually behind the building.
Right.
And there's these huge murals on the walls of like Judy Garland and John Ritter on the high school. It's pretty cool.
I love that.
So, yeah, I mean, this is Hollywood history. This is where it all is and where it all happens.
You don't like Jimmy Kimmel, do you?
I didn't. I loved Jimmy Kimmel till we went to see him in person.
See, I still like him.
No.
He was just a butt, but it's just the way
No, I don't believe that Jimmy Kimmel was an option on our trip this
It's no
time
longer
around.
involved.
No, however, some people did get tickets for themselves, and they went on the free night.
Right.
So
it's just not part of it. You don't tour the Jimmy Kimmel studio any longer.
Right. What we did tour was the El Capitan Theater, which was absolutely beautiful.
Beautiful inside.
And that guy's still the same gentleman gives you the tour, right?
Was it the guy that was in the video?
Yeah. Love him.
The general manager.
Yeah.
What's really great about this is there's the history of the theater itself. There's the history of Disney taking it over and refurbishing it. There's you get to go on stage.
Right.
You guys got to see the organ. We saw that on one of our trips, and I gotta say, I think that was the highlight of one of our trips.
It was really cool for us because we saw it underneath the stage at first.
Yeah.
So we got to see the actual, I forget the name of the elevator. It has like a special stage name, but it was on the elevator. And then when we went upstairs into the actual theater, they had raised it. So we got to see it twice.
One of our trips, one of the gentlemen on the trip played the organ.
I remember that.
Let him come up
And they let him, he was an organist, and they let him come up and play the organ.
So every trip is tweaked and slightly different
Everything
because
is
of the
slightly
people
different.
and the
also
circumstances.
It depends on who's on the trip with you.
But that's just so cool. I mean,
I'm sure there are people out there. Were you on the trip where everybody does Kermit hands?
No, we
It
weren't
was
on that one.
Pete's.
Yeah.
But again,
we
this
did
is
do
something that you think about who gets the chance to walk up on that stage.
Yeah.
And see that stuff and get near that stuff.
Another cool thing that happened when we were there is they were actually doing a screening of Monsters University. So we kind of had to work around their schedule because they were doing this for like a group of, film, not critics, but just they were students from the American Film Institute. Okay, yeah, so they were having a screening, so we kind of had to work around them. So we were in the theater for a couple minutes, and then we left, and we could hear the movie starting, and when all the people went in, and it was pretty cool.
One of the things we got to see, this is right across the street from the hotel.
Yeah.
So if you have some free time, there's always a movie playing. They have something called a curtain show. And it's this thing that happens before the movie starts. And when they first told us about it, when they first started showing Toy Story, the first Toy Story, they had the army guys rappel down from the balcony.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's not just a short or a preview that plays before it. It's usually something that involves theatrics.
Yeah, they have a live stage show happening before
all theaters used to do that, though.
Right.
So, yeah, it's kind of...
So they played that for us. So again, that was something that was different. We only had that on one trip. But again, every trip is different. Everything is tweaked a little bit. And this is stuff that you never thought you'd get a chance to see.
And of course, this is one of the old, cathedral-style theaters that is one of very few. I can't remember the exact number that has the mighty Wurlitzer organ in it, and that's a show in itself. If you happen to catch a movie that has that, I grew up in a town that had one of these theaters. The Bird Theater in Richmond had a Wurlitzer as well.
It's like the Fox in Atlanta.
Yeah,
it's just amazing.
One of the little tidbits about the theater that when Disney bought it, it needed to be rehabbed, and they wanted to restore it back to its original the way it looked when it was first built. And they found that the secretary of the architect of the theater was still alive. And they contacted her, and she had all of his files. And they found the color sheets that he used, the color samples.
Fabric swatches.
And were able to recreate everything from I believe it was built in the late 20s or early 30s. I apologize, I don't remember
early
the date.
20s.
But they were able to restore the theater back to its original splendor using the exact right colors.
It's beautiful. And of course, another thing we did in Hollywood was, as you saw in the video, was the Jim Henson Studios. This, for me, I'm a huge Muppet nerd. Love the Muppets. All the movies.
Now, remember we talked about there's something different for everybody?
Yeah.
For me, the big thing was that was Charlie Chaplin's studio.
That's what got me. And that the Carpenters had recorded there.
Yes.
Right.
That just
We
put
Are
a
the
chill
World
down my
was
back.
recorded
Yeah.
there.
It just...
It used to be an A&M.
Yeah. You see the little vault where Chaplin kept his shoes or whatever
Right.
the heck. Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome.
It not only speaks to the Muppets now, but it speaks to Hollywood history
Yeah.
and the things that happened there.
Just I mean, and it's so... I know they've redone it, but it's still, you can tell, you can feel what happened
Yes.
there.
The barn at the back of the
Yeah,
theater
oh my
is on the
gosh.
historic registry, and
Yeah.
it's being kept in the best shape possible.
The
It
other
was
thing
very cool to be able to touch it.
The other thing I think is cool about these trips is we talked about the organ and going up on stage, and now we talk about Jim Henson, and I don't want to give specifics, but every location you go to, there's something that's hands-on.
Right.
Yes.
It's not just, okay, we're going to sit here and we're going to listen to them talk about Jim Henson. This is great. It's, you get to see and do and experience and touch things that you never would get on a regular
no.
tour.
That's all
Yeah.
Backstage Magic, though.
right.
I mean, every one of them. We painted stained glass in Barcelona. I mean, that is so cool that
It's a hands-on,
It's a hands-on
tactile
thing.
thing.
And it just, it's
So
awesome.
we talk about going to Jim Henson, and some people go, how boring is that? I'm going to walk through a studio. It's not. It's
No,
very,
it
very
isn't.
cool.
We actually saw Nick Jonas that day. He was at the
Oh, really?
Jim Henson Studios.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, at the recording studio. I think our group really, as a whole, enjoyed Jim Henson. This is one of those places where if the group is large enough, they'll split you off into two different
Yeah.
groups,
Right.
and you'll see one thing first, and then they'll see something else.
Yeah.
And we got lucky in some of the things that we were able to see that are another one of those like toss up things. Will it be open? Will it not be?
Did you have lunch there?
We did not have
Okay,
lunch
that's
there.
what we
Changed
had.
that.
They've
Yeah.
changed that?
Yeah, that
Okay.
used to have lunch at the Jim Henson Studios, but they've changed that.
Now you go to
Okay.
the TAM.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
you go to the Tam
Okay, that's
O'Shanter,
nice.
which was, again, really cool. This is the picture you're seeing here is the back corner in the main room of the Tam O'Shanter, which it looks like an old rustic
It's Scottish themed.
Scottish themed pub. And that back corner seat is Walt Disney's table.
Oh, wow.
And so a lot of people lined up to, get pictures.
And that's interesting,
sitting there.
too. We talk about every group is different. I saw you have people go and have pictures taken there. I don't remember being with a group. Were they really? Just I wasn't paying attention.
This is one of the places that you hear in Fables, Walt Disney stories, that he would give the animators, the Imagineers, a quarter and say, go have dinner, and this is where they would go to dinner.
But they had to come back then at work that
Right.
night.
And finish up what they were doing.
And they would get one
Jim,
French
here's a
fry for a
quarter.
quarter.
Yeah, John, give me a quarter. I need to go.
Talking about meeting people, we were in the Tam O'Shanter, and we all met Dick Van Dyke.
I don't want to hear about that again.
You're going to hear about that till the day
I've
we
heard
die.
that story so many times.
Every day.
We're going to meet somebody when we
Yeah. No Nick Jonas or
And again, this is one of those
Dick
things
Van
where
Dyke.
people went crazy that we were eating in the Tam O'Shanter. So
that's cool though. I like that better than the Henson.
Yeah.
I mean, the Henson thing was
And-
nice, but this
Well, at
is
the Henson thing, you ate at a picnic table in the parking lot.
yeah.
And it-
This was,
No, we
this
were on
is
a
definitely-
soundstage.
We were on a sound
Oh, we had
stage.
it in the
were you?
parking lot.
It kind of with the Tam O'Shanter, it kind of depends on how big of a Disney fan you really are as far as the history. If you're really into that and you know what it is and you know what it means in Disney history, you're going to have a great time. If not, you're still going to have a really great lunch.
Well, it's again, we talk about the layers. That's been around since 1927. So there's a great deal of Hollywood history
Yeah.
involved in that also.
Beyond
and I
just
think
Disney.
there's something for everybody on this trip. You know, we talked about being our Chaplin's barn.
Right.
So there's a different level for everybody. Some people were absolutely thrilled that it was the Muppets. Some of us were just awed that we were walking around Charlie Chaplin's
Yeah.
studio. Teresa loved the fact that the Carpenters recorded their albums there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole
And that's
like you
the thing.
said, on so many different levels.
That's the thing with Hollywood and the Hollywood history. You keep running into things that you can recognize from your childhood or whenever.
Yeah. When I roamed the streets of Hollywood, yeah, I remember that.
Well, with Tam O'Shanter, one thing to mention too, they actually just recently filmed scenes from The Office, the American version of The Office in there. So it's not even just relevant on an old Disney scale. Like if you watch television today, there's a good chance you've actually seen it. And that goes with a lot of the places on the tour. Like Muppet Studios, or Henson Studios, you might think it's just a normal studio. But if you've seen the updated Muppet movie from 2011, they use the facade in that. And so when you first pull up, you recognize it from that movie.
Yep.
So you don't have to be into old history.
Is that what you're saying?
You don't have to be. No, if you don't have to know the history, you can still You can learn about it through
Enjoy it.
relevant things.
Yeah. I
You
get
can be
it. I
shallow.
understand.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you guys want to add to our Hollywood experience before we go into like the next day where we do Imagineering?
Well, I think we should mention at least Walt's barn and the train.
Oh, that's not on here. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So after Tam O'Shanter, we went to Walt's barn. We got to do a tour of that, see a lot of cool like historic artifact kind of things. Like Ward Kimball's model trains were there. We got to just kind of tour around the little areas. A lot of furniture that like Walt built even, which was so cool to actually see and be able to touch a desk that Walt Disney made.
Oh, yeah.
And then we actually got to ride this little train kind of thing. It was cute. Yeah.
I know there was a lot of teary-eyed people when we did the train, just thinking that this was something that had belonged to Walt.
Right.
And that here we were getting a chance to ride on
This was in
it.
his backyard. This was the Carol. You rode the Carolwood Express.
Yeah.
The barn was in his backyard too.
Well, they tell you that what happened was that the barn was moved, but it's been rehabbed. It's not all original. Walt actually had the barn built, and when they built the barn at the place, they built it, but they had to build a sag into it because the one in Walt's backyard sagged.
I didn't realize that. That was a cool portion. And you had these gentlemen that were working there as volunteers that are very enthusiastic about what they do. I know a lot of them are retired Disney cast members from different roles, and they really take it seriously, and they know a lot of history and a lot about trains. And if you're
they're willing to answer all of your questions.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of that just speaks to how Californians and Disneyland visitors, how they feel about the train there. It's completely different than the way Walt Disney World fans feel about our train. We just look at it as a transportation mode. Disneyland thinks of it as like the greatest thing, like a holy grail of Disneyland. So.
And another thing to note about the train barn before we move on is that it is run by volunteers, and it's amazing what these guys have put together on a nonprofit, a no budget kind of thing.
Yeah, and they do have merchandise there that you can purchase things, and the money goes to helping them. And
Since the first one we've done to the last one we've done, that whole area has grown
tremendously. Yeah.
There was the barn and there was the train. The first time we went.
What's that now?
They've got an actual car from the Carolwood Express.
Oh, they were
now
working
that's
on that
part
when
of
we
it.
were there.
There's a whole back area now that's kind of like a little walking path.
They've expanded like a picnic area. Now, if you're interested in doing this on your own and not doing it, make sure you check because it's not open every day.
Right.
Yeah, actually, I
Just the
think
drive to get back up in there was cool. Too.
Yeah, this day they were there just for us. They're not normally open on the day that we went.
Right.
So this was like a really special thing that they were coming in and working.
I think they're normally open every Sunday or every other Sunday, something like that.
Yeah.
They have a website. Show notes?
They have internet.
Yeah.
And isn't that we went up that way? Isn't you go by where the carousel is?
Yeah,
That
you do.
when we did it, the road was blocked off or whatever, and we didn't get to see the carousel. But just even thinking that I was like in the neighborhood where like it all started for Walt. That
It was
here
a
was this-
weepy trip. I remember crying
Yes,
a lot on that trip.
It was for me too, because it's like
Going to Walmart's a weepy trip for you.
Well, for me, because I said it was like the carousel. Like, where would we all be if Walt hadn't had that idea? And here we were at the inspiration for that, and to be able to go in all the places that Walt had a hand in.
There's parts of this trip that you just can't get into every single detail.
Right.
But even riding on the bus, you pass by the cemetery where he's buried.
Yeah.
You pass
Hospital.
by the park where the carousel was that he made that.
And all
first
of this
thing.
is in
The house.
Griffith Park.
Yeah.
It's a
And in
house.
Griffith
Yeah.
Park, a huge number of famous famous Hollywood westerns were filmed.
Right.
And for Craig, movies as recently as 3 or 4 years ago.
I've probably seen some of them.
This first Hollywood day is definitely a lot of cool stuff for Disney fans, but you feel it on that first day, the build up to the next day. Everyone is kind of waiting for the next day. And that's the day that you start off with Imagineering. And that's I don't know anybody that can say that's probably not the highlight.
That's
of
actually
their trip.
Disney Studios.
Oh well,
It is, but we didn't take a picture.
Yeah, I don't think anyone said it was Imagineering.
yeah.
We're just
Yeah,
getting
it's
ready.
just getting ready.
No one's seeing it now. It's not public.
I didn't say anybody did say it.
All right, so Imagineering.
Yeah, Imagineering is in Glendale, and it's kind of one of those things where we want to be careful with some of the details that we talk about, but we do split up into two groups. And I remember hearing a review that you guys did a couple years ago about that moment where the two groups collide. They go past each other. One person saw one thing at Imagineering, the other group saw another thing, and it is that moment where you're like, okay, our thing is better than yours. No,
That's exactly how it happens.
Yeah.
You literally pass each other walking on the sidewalk, and you think that you saw the cooler thing, but really you're going to see something just as cool.
Just as cool.
Yeah.
As a Disney fan going into Imagineering, and again, I really don't want to give a lot of the details away at all. But as a Disney fan, you're seeing a lot of things, a lot of original things that you just, when you see them, you're
And
like,
everybody
wow.
has a different. Let me tell a story. Everybody has a different point of what is the excitement for them. Kevin found the Florida room
Oh, yeah.
and
See, we didn't
totally
do that.
freaked out. Well, it was not
Well, I
on
didn't
the
even
tour.
find it.
Okay.
Someone said to me, I just, my feeling is if the door is open, I'm allowed to look. And I was just standing there looking around, and the man asked me if I knew what it was. And I said, no. He said, that's Walt's Florida room.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, what, the big picture was Walt with the pointer?
Yeah, I tell Katie that story all the time. That's like my memory of Walt Disney.
Right.
And I didn't know what a Disney was, but every time I see that picture, I get goosebumps. And if I would have been able to see that room,
It's just an office now.
yeah,
But this
I
is-
know. But I mean, to
And
know
this
that
is
that
the
was it.
experience at Imagineering. You're walking around the halls. You're walking the halls that are part of the creative process of the things that we love.
I was standing next to a cabinet at one point, and each drawer was labeled, and the drawer labels said "Original World's Fair Concept." And I thought, go ahead, turn your head. Just turn
If you
your
could
head.
just open that.
Get out the
Wow.
big bag.
There were 1,000 of those situations. Like we would be walking through these hallways and you'd see either cabinets or like drawers or just tables covered in paper of drawings and stuff that you just want to rifle through.
Right. You're just like.
But there's like 3 people there with you, so you can't even look at something without them noticing. But
We had a good chance to really take a nice tour through some of the different buildings, different departments that they have. Again, I don't want to spoil anything,
I
but
do want to say one thing, though. I apologize for keeping
Yeah.
interrupting you because this is a very cool part of the tour. Every group goes through Imagineering, and every group gets to see something different that they're working on.
yeah.
We got to see them do the mine train. They had mock-ups of the mine train there. Couldn't take pictures and stuff, but
We were
it
going
was-
through one time, and they were making large figurines, and come to find out they were for the Disney Dream.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you can't talk about specifics a lot of times because you don't know what someone's going to see.
Right.
But I guarantee you, you're going to see cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think when
Exactly.
we went through, weren't they working on Be Our Guest? They were doing
Yeah.
the gargoyles for what we
That's
now
cool.
see here.
Yeah.
How cool
And
is
what's
that?
really cool is you get to see them and you think, where are they going to go? What's
Yeah.
that going to do? And then all of a sudden, we were walking on the deck. It was the things that we saw. We saw who hangs off the back of the Dream? Isn't it Goofy? I think he hangs off the back, if I'm wrong. But we saw all of these large fish, and it's that little aquatic play area for the kids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it was all of a sudden, you have this realization, oh, that's what I saw at Imagineering. So
And
fine.
you can get into situations like we did. I won't go into depth about it, but we saw something whenever we were walking through one room that they totally didn't intend for us to see. Because then whenever we left that room, they had black sheets covering it all up completely. So you get to
I
see
am
special
convinced.
things like that.
I'm convinced that I saw a mock-up for Cars Land Walt Disney World because I looked into a room and I thought this
You
looks.
just like walking off by yourself?
No, it was we were
Checking-
looking at one thing and I turned around and the big room behind me was open.
Yeah.
And I did not walk in, I did not touch, I was just looking. And next thing I know, someone came over and closed the black door.
Jeff Alves just posted on the boards, apropos to something else completely. Always make sure you look behind you when you're at Walt Disney World because you never know what special thing they've you know, most people look forward. They always, you know, surprise you with something behind you. It's kind of like that here. Make sure you have eyes in the back of your head.
And so you're so excited. You just saw Imagineering, and your trip isn't even started yet.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, what else can we see?
Yeah, and I don't want to skip past you. Of course, you do have a chance to shop at Mickey's of Glendale, and that
Highlight for any Disney fan.
yeah.
Oh, and my helpful tip for there is, if you're going to use a credit card, let your credit card company know that you're in a different place.
Oh, Lord, I forgot.
Because I went up with close to $500 worth of stuff, and my credit card was declined, and it was because I was like buying little things in California, and they didn't. You know, they were trying to do me a favor, but I had to explain to everybody, no, my credit's still good.
Right, in front of all of the Dizzers.
Yes.
Kathy's a deadbeat.
It is the best company store you'll ever go in.
Oh,
It's kind of madness. Like it's like Black Friday.
With
Also-
our groups, yeah.
Right, also, you get to experience it with Pete, which is a completely different experience. You want to shop for yourself, but you also don't want to get killed.
It's like that nature
Please don't kill
photo
me.
of the bugs that go over the bones of the animal, and then they all back out, and the animal bones are perfectly clean.
Can skeletonize a cow.
That's an
in 15
ABD
seconds.
trip to Mickey's of Glendale.
The dog.
But after Imagineering, of course, we head over to the Disney Studios.
Oh, my favorite.
This was Teresa's favorite.
Yeah. This was like Pollyanna and everything all wrapped into one.
It was really cool to see, and on the bus ride there, we got to watch this film about like the history of the Disney Studios and all that. So it really got us revved up to see these different sites, and we got to walk around some of the different buildings, some of the old buildings, some of the new buildings. And you kind of see how the studio has expanded over the years.
My big thing as we pulled in is across the street is the hospital where Walt died.
Yeah.
And I can remember my son calling me on the phone, and I'm like, I'm across the street from the hospital where Walt died. And my sons are like, yeah, but, and I'm like, you don't get this. It's like, you know, here's the studios. This was the hospital. It's like, for me, it was like connecting all the dots.
They used to walk his lunch across the street from the studio.
Yeah, I mean,
commissary.
how cool is that? And if you're a Disney cast member, to like go see like sort of like where it all started.
Right.
You get to do a tour of studios. You get to see the archives, which is very cool.
Yes.
Kevin has a tip, though, about shopping at the studios.
There's a Company D store across the street, and there's also a Disney store.
From the commissary.
Right.
And you get to have lunch at the commissary, and the commissary is, well, the food's good. It's the commissary. It's a cafeteria. I spent my time in the store across the street.
See, I like the commissary because I just sat there and was giving every one of those people in there a backstory because what the heck were they doing
Right.
there?
You wonder, are they
and
actors?
what
Are
are
they
they
producers?
doing? You know, and I was trying to hear conversations and try to.
And at least for us, you got an unbelievable amount of food. So you get these little coupons, kind of like the dining plan, but you get like an entree, a side, and a drink and a dessert.
And the food was okay.
What
It
did
was great.
What did
It
you
was
get,
good.
Sean?
We got these huge taco salads that I swear were the size of my head.
The largest taco
That's
salad
big.
I've
Wow.
ever
I
I
seen
have to
in my
tell
life.
you, one time we were running late. They came around and people were mid-fork and they took their food away from us.
We're late. We got to
all
go.
sat there
We were running late.
Jeez.
So,
But that Company D store, you should go
I
in there.
bought some
Yeah.
stuff in there. It was good.
now,
Cheap
again,
stuff.
I'm going to bring this back to Craig. It doesn't have to do anything with old history. But if you were ever fans of the show Brothers and Sisters or a lot of the shows that are on ABC, a lot of the exterior shots are shot outside on the Disney Studios.
Actually,
If
sorry,
you're a Brothers and Sisters fan, they were always at a coffee shop, and that was the patio outside the commissary.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it.
I think my favorite thing about the studio, even though I made all the relevant statements and stuff, but whenever I was talking about this trip with Pete, before I even found out that I got to go on this portion, it was mainly about how I can't wait to see the studios one day because I like to watch the Reluctant Dragon short with where they have the guy walking around the studios where he's going to pitch his cartoon to Walt. And I mean, yeah, it's changed since then, but like you see the Mickey Avenue, Dopey Drive sign, and that's one of the first things you also see whenever you get there. You get to see the ink and paint building, you get to see animation. Like it's all there from the 40s whenever that little short movie was put out. And for the most part, it still resembles exactly what it was like in there.
It looks
And
just
so-
like it. Yeah.
And can you imagine working there then? I mean, that's what kept going through my mind. It's like, oh, the people that actually worked in here. And
What's funny
just-
is you talk to the people that did work there, and they don't have the same view of it as you did, as you do.
Well,
they
it's like
kind of
working a
say to
dream.
themselves,
In 50 years, when we do a documentary, and people are going to go, I wish I was Teresa.
I asked
I don't
Bob
have
Gurr.
that view.
I asked Bob Gurr, I said, when did you realize that this was huge? And he said, we didn't. We just were doing our jobs.
Yeah.
And I think when you hear that, I mean, people who were inking and painting during Pinocchio probably didn't realize what Pinocchio would
Yeah.
be.
Right.
No,
right.
no, you don't. But that's what makes it so cool.
And to see that Legends Plaza where all the handprints and you just walk by and go, wow, and look at that
Yeah.
one. And
Yeah. All the
awesome.
Disney legends
My
are
gosh.
have plaques right out there, and of course that's where the corporate headquarters for Disney is, for the Disney company as a whole, is there as well.
And do you have a picture of the partner statue? You can recreate Teresa.
yeah,
and
we recreated the little
Walt
statue
and
ourselves.
Mickey.
It's down there. It's at the end of that
Yeah.
long walkway. There's the another partners.
We were watching
statue.
a show one night, and it was a fancy hotel, and a limo pulled up outside to pick up the people.
His brothers and sisters.
Brothers and sisters, and it was the front of the executive building.
Oh,
they
wow.
used that as a hotel. It was
What
great.
an awesome day that was.
Yeah.
This for me, I love this day, and of course the studios. When you really think about it in Walt Disney history, this is where he spent
Yeah.
most of the time. Of all the places we go, this is where he spent most of his time, and it's really cool to be able to literally walk in his footsteps, going through the studios, and like you said, see the soundstage where Mary Poppins was made.
I think that might be my tip for people doing the Backstage Magic when they get to the studios. I kind of knew about it because we did the Paramount tour leading up to it, and they point out, like, every time you go past the soundstage, they have a plaque that says what was filmed there. And Walt Disney Studios kind of has the same exact thing, but they actually, like, detail it out and write descriptions. So, like, I got a really big kick at whenever we passed the soundstage where they actually, like, filled it up with water for 20,000 leagues.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's if you take the time to actually look and not just say, like, oh, there's buildings, there was stuff filmed there, you can actually read more into the history, because a lot of times you're moving so fast, the guides don't have time to tell you every single thing.
Right.
Is there anything else you want to add to the studios before we move on to the theme parks?
Well, I would just mention another one of my tips is ABD handles your luggage. And so once you arrive, it's like you don't have to worry about it ever again. But when you load your stuff on the bus to then go to the theme parks, keep your medicine with you,
Okay.
because our suitcases got lost between Hollywood and Disneyland. And I thought, well, it's such a short ride and they're going to put it underneath the bus. I'll just put my medicine in my suitcase. Well, the suitcases never made it from the hotel, and that's a whole nother long story. But my mistake was I thought, well, I'll just put it in the suitcase. Anything you need that's important, carry it with you
Right.
on the bus.
That's true wherever you travel.
Right, exactly. But I thought,
And I'm not minimizing your experience because I know you guys had a rough time with losing your luggage. We've been on many, many
Yeah.
Adventures by Disney, and we've never had anybody lose
Right.
anything.
Well, that was just
so
a,
it was such
that
a
was just a
rare
freaking
occurrence.
rare
I don't want
thing.
people now
But
to
it
say
adds to our trip.
Right.
Well, on the last trip, you all lost power at the Grand Floridian.
We
Grand
lost,
Or
California.
Grand Californian. I do that all the time.
We lost water.
we lost
actually.
water.
water. So, I mean,
Because then we get
That
the
was
questions.
out of your control,
We
yeah.
get questions. Oh no, I don't want to go on this trip because Kathy and Teresa lost their luggage.
oh, the
No,
luggage
no.
part of
First
it,
time we've ever had that
No,
happen.
she just the medicine.
we had many funny stories over our luggage getting lost that that added to the trip. I'm just saying that on a personal level, I never do that. But I thought, well, hey, it's only a short hop across town. So just anything you need, just carry it with you, and that goes for
anytime you get
anywhere.
on a bus, they will tell you that the bus is secured. So, for instance, you had to leave your cameras on the bus when you went into Imagineering. The bus is secured. There's a driver with the bus at all time. You're welcome to bring anything you think you're going to need on the bus with you. They don't want you to bring your entire suitcase with you because, they do need
Space.
seats for people.
Right.
There's space issues. But you're allowed to bring anything with you. People bring laptops, people bring iPads, people bring cameras. You can leave them on the bus. So that's a good tip no matter where you go.
Right.
Always keep your medication with you.
I also want to add too that transportation is really high class. You're on
Oh,
a
it is.
Mercedes
Yeah.
Benz luxury bus.
Yeah.
You're never full. It's never like every seat is taken. There's always extra seats.
This isn't romancing the stone.
Right. So, I mean, the transportation is really...
And every opportunity they get, they give you water and snacks. And I mean, so it's like really nice experience. So if ever you are like thirsty or anything, there's always a cooler. And it got to the point where we were wondering where these coolers were. Like they just showed up out of nowhere.
I know, with ice cold water.
There was another bus following you with coolers and snacks.
I think there was.
And even the bus driver knew a lot and added to the conversation.
I was just going to say that we had a bus driver one time who was an old Hollywood history buff.
Yeah.
And showed us where Schwab's drugstore was and where nightclubs were and where this happened and where that happened. So it was really kind of cool to have somebody sort of give you that tour that was unexpected.
Now, as we leave the Disney Studios, of course, that night you head into the Grand Californian at Disneyland, and you actually get to spend some time at the Disneyland Park that evening, and you spend the next 2 days at the theme parks as well. But that night is where you get your dinner is at Big Thunder Ranch, which has recently changed.
Oh, that's nice.
You get a private kind of room at Haunted Mansion. The whole group fills up the room at Haunted Mansion, which you guys had mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It was really cool. And when you get a bunch of Disney fans in the Haunted Mansion,
yes,
they're all going to recite the narration.
These are things that we should point out too, that things can change.
Right.
We used to eat in a different spot. We used to eat at Steakhouse 55. Decided to change it to in the park so that you have more access to it.
Well, not only that, but it was very, very rushed. From getting through Imagineering and then the studios and then getting to Anaheim in traffic, we had a time at Steakhouse 55, and it was always very rushed.
Because there's something going on that night. They want to get us to that thing at night.
So they've changed that out so that sort of relieves some of the pressure.
And they try to do these private rides rides. They may not always happen, so don't say, I heard on the news that, they all got the ride Haunted Mansion. These are things they're going to try to do for you.
Another thing is people will start planning on their own time. Well, I want to see the fireworks. I want to see World of Color. I want to see the parade. ABD takes care of all.
Exactly.
In the best way possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like for example, that night we actually got to see Fantasmic at a dessert party. Yeah. So it's perfect. Yeah, after you're done
night?
eating.
The first night that we were there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you had a private area just for you guys.
It's roped off, and you get like this nice little box with desserts and stuff, and hot chocolate, coffee, whatever you want, water.
Isn't that cool?
And it's perfect. Yeah. So
especially when you see the throngs of people trying to get in, and you think, oh, I have my own private little place.
That's my least favorite part of Disneyland. That little narrow thing by Tarzan's tray. Oh, it makes me so claustrophobic.
The following day, we had a really cool experience in the morning. Our group was able to, go early in the morning before anybody else into the park. And that's when we started our backstage tour of the actual park itself. But we had a chance to take photos and whatnot with the castle by ourselves.
I don't want to make your experience any less special, but everybody gets to do that. So if you're thinking that that's something you're looking forward to, that's a typical thing.
No, this was roped off, and they were holding guests back. So
yeah, we were taking a little bit longer, I think, than they expected, and they actually were holding.
Oh, that's cool.
They were holding all the
every
guests.
Trip we've been on, we've been in before the park opened, and
it's early. It's an early morning, but you walk down Main Street by yourself.
Yeah. And, of course, we got to see a couple different backstage areas, different rides, and I don't know how much they are subject to change.
Yeah, they're subject to change. They're kind of special stuff. I think we could just tell people that you're going to be able to do some backstage ride experiences that
What did y'all do?
Awesome. Well, we don't want to give it away.
Oh, we can't tell what rides we...
I think that those are part of the surprises.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that you don't want to give those away. But you're going to see, for the Disney fan who wants to see how stuff works, you're going to see how stuff works.
Yeah.
And can I say that, like, before we went, and you guys kept going, we're not going to tell you. I want to tell you how frustrated I was.
Yeah, it ticked me off.
But it really was nice to be able to experience myself without...
We want other people to have that excitement of experiencing it and almost discovering it for themselves that we got to have.
The other thing that we have to worry about is the last time we went, we were walking through Disneyland and they said, we just got word that something that we've never done before is available. We're going to go do that now. And as far as I know, it was a one-off.
Okay.
So I don't want to tell people that that's what we got to do because it's not available on every one.
I'll just say, if you're a Disney fan, no matter where they take you, you're going to enjoy it. And you're going to, I said there was some things that I felt was almost like a religious experience because I got to experience it with other like-minded Disney people.
And there are some things I think we can talk about. Yeah. I think we can talk about the fact Kevin mentioned that you get to go up over the firehouse.
Right.
And see Walt's apartment. That's not a secret, but it's something that not everybody gets to see or do. So now here you go. You guys are really Disney fans.
It was one of those moments where you just like, oh my God. Like I can just see Walt Disney walking around, pacing around in this room. This one room where they had
it wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be.
A little bit smaller.
Just thinking about it right now, I have chills. Because it's one of those things where you get up there and it's an apartment. It's small. But, I mean, just like Dustin said, you can absolutely picture Walt Disney there, and you see his bathroom, you see his couch, you see his bed, which, I mean, his couch turned into a bed, but, I mean, it's just so unbelievable.
Out on the little patio watching the crowd.
Yeah, there's a little patio.
I do have to tell people that the majority of this trip is handicapped accessible, scooter accessible, wheelchair accessible. Walt Disney's apartment is not.
Yes, actually, it is.
Actually, it's not. That elevator works sometimes, but not all the time.
Okay.
We've had people been denied access.
This wasn't even an elevator. They actually made very special accommodations for Tony, who was a guest with us. But I don't know. Maybe that's not an every time thing. But I was blown
an outside
away.
Lift?
Yes, it was not a permanent elevator. It was
right.
It was
that doesn't work all the time.
Okay.
So we have to tell people that's possible.
But I will just say
they will do their best.
This was possible this time. So it was a nice bonus, and we were blown away at how easy it was. They were very accommodating. So
I agree.
Yeah,
they're very, very good about it.
And again,
I just don't want anybody to be disappointed.
Absolutely, I totally understand.
And again, they will try so hard to make sure everybody sees it and has a good time. So. Yeah.
And if there are certain things that are just simply not wheelchair accessible or handicap accessible, they find really great alternatives.
Right.
They really do.
And I deal with this question a lot. And this is one of the adventures. And the adventures that happen in the United States are much more accessible than those that happen in Europe. We have the ADA. Most of the rest of the world does not. This is one portion of it that can be inaccessible.
Did you guys get to ride the train?
We did. We actually rode the Lily Bell. I don't think it was this day, but some of the group went right after Walt's apartment.
Right, it was some of
extra. Some of us went the next day, but we got to go on the Lily Bell, which was unbelievable because usually it's closed off and very private.
Right.
It's I don't know if anybody the real history of it, but it's really cool if you know like the history of the train and Lily and Disney.
It was great, and it's also cool because celebrities still ride it today.
Yeah.
We rode on it with our tour guide Matt, and he was telling us like which seat was Johnny Depp's favorite every time he comes to Disneyland to ride the train. So of course we all took turns sitting in Johnny Depp's favorite seat on the train. So
we got on the train, and the folks on our trip were so nice. They saved John and I a love seat.
Oh.
I wouldn't let Stella sit on it. It was so small.
I think that was Johnny Depp's favorite seat. It was kind of like a chaise or whatever.
Johnny Depp's really small. He got a small butt bed. These are not big seats on the Lily Bell.
And there's only like 3 of them, so there's not many options.
Then the other thing you guys got to do, I assume?
Right. In that particular day, we got to see a private area of the Soundsational Parade. And, of course, that's where we met up with Kevin Kidney and Jody Daly. Special for our particular group that was going out that time. And like I said, the whole group got to meet them. I mean, these are the creative minds behind this parade. That was
the private seating area is something everybody gets. They do this for multiple shows and multiple things, but this particular thing was specific for our group.
It was really cool.
But did you guys go into another place in Disneyland that day and see another apartment?
We saw the Dream Suite.
Oh,
okay. Right. I'm like, ooh, I don't want to say it if you didn't get a chance to do it. Yikes.
Yeah, so I don't know if this was split, just like Walt's apartment was, but I know a group of us did go in. We got to do a little tour. One of the guest relations cast members took us around, kind of explained things. They're kind of like these show effects in the living room, so we got to see kind of the cool things that they do, kind of like a kiss goodnight. We got to see the different bedrooms.
The bathroom, woo!
Yeah, the
awesome
bathroom with the stained glass and the little writing thing.
That's pretty awesome.
And then there's this really cool outdoor patio with these. The thing that really stuck out for me there was in the tree they kind of had these fake firefly lights, it was this tubing with a little fiber optic light on the end, and it would puff a little thing of air out of the tubing, so it would make the light move around.
That's very cool.
So it's just this really cool effect
Cool
that you normally
details.
don't get to see.
I fell in love with the chandelier in the Dream Suite. It was like it came from a saloon in Disneyland Paris, and it was made out of spurs. And I kept thinking, if no one looks, I'm taking this on.
Was it the one in the Big Thunder Mountain?
I think it was.
I think it was.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous.
That firefly thing, he's probably your friend on Facebook.
My friend?
I know he's my friend on Facebook, but he's the gentleman who invented the fireflies for Disney.
Oh, wow.
Really?
And he posts his story every so often on Facebook, and you can buy his little firefly effects for your house.
Yeah, I've just got to say about the Dream Suite.
That's cool.
We at first were talking about skipping it just because we were getting exhausted and we had to get ready for the parade, all that. But it's one thing that you don't want to miss. It was gorgeous.
That's something you touched on, that it's kind of like Sophie's Choice. Yeah. I'm so tired. I just want to go sit down or lay down, but you're afraid of what you're going to miss.
Keep moving. Keep moving.
Yeah.
Keep moving.
Yeah,
Just keep doing it.
People talk when
You can rest at night.
when I help people start planning for these trips. Well, do I need restaurant reservations? Do I need this? Do I need that? What are we going to do at night? It doesn't sound like there's anything to do at night. And I try and explain to everybody, take it easy.
Yeah.
You're going to be exhausted.
Exactly.
And it's not even just regular exhausted, being tired from walking around. It's also emotionally
It
exhausted.
is. It is. There was a couple days that the next morning it was like I could hardly get out of bed. Yesterday was just too much.
It was like
it was
emotionally
overload.
exhausting.
Yeah. But I
agree.
loved it.
Well, that's kind of the theme of that day, is seeing some of those backstage areas in the Disneyland Park itself. Again, the next day we go into California Adventure, and very similar feel to it. Of course, there's not the Dream Suite or Walt's apartment, that kind of stuff, but we do get to see again some backstage areas that may change out here and there, and got to see some of the real inner workings of California.
And it was all very current, so it was stuff that people were really interested in. Attractions specifically, but it was really cool, and you got to see how it worked in the backstage maintenance bay, and all that stuff.
And of course, we got some priority entrance as well to some of the different rides.
I want to talk about the changes to California Adventure Day. In the past, in the morning, you walked over to the Disneyland Hotel and you had breakfast at Goofy's Kitchen.
Right.
However, that's in the opposite direction that you eventually want to head. And what they've done is they have switched it out so that you now have breakfast in the Grand Californian at Storytellers.
Oh, okay.
And then you go right into the park.
Unfortunately for us,
we didn't experience that.
We
but
didn't experience that.
That is the plan.
That day was the day that Grand Californian and Downtown Disney lost their water.
Yeah.
And they were able to. Anybody that was interested on the ABD, our guides set up a breakfast.
Yeah, Matt and Dean were super on it. They took us right over to DCA to the Starbucks, got us drinks, any kind of breakfast sandwich that we wanted. And then we were right there to go on to our next experience with the attraction. So it worked out really well. It was something that's unavoidable.
But talking about that, the guides are always one step ahead.
Oh, they are.
Oh, they are.
Planning on the phone, making sure there's nothing going to happen. If something happens, they're on it. They are on
We
it.
do this thing where you think, these poor guides, come to dinner with us. Come hang out with us afterwards.
Oh, no.
They are working.
They're working.
Yeah.
They're uploading pictures. They're doing,
I just want to go back a second. The reason this has been changed, although it didn't happen on your trip, is to make more morning time.
Yeah.
Because they've added other things. Now, you do eat at Storytellers. That's where your farewell breakfast is. But so you do have Storytellers 2 days in a row on most trips. But the reason for that was a savings in time and distance.
That
That's
makes
also
sense.
why you don't eat at Steakhouse 55 anymore.
Right.
So that you can be
It was
there
not
in
a
the
very
park.
good guest experience. We literally got off the bus one day and they told us, we had been to Imagineering, we had been to the studios. It's a very long day. And they got off the bus and said, you don't have time to go upstairs and change or freshen up. You have to go directly to dinner.
Oh, wow.
So
Now, after we were able to do all the different things that we were able to do at California Adventure, I don't know how much we should really talk about this, but Adventures by Disney, for someone who hasn't been on it, does a really great job at wrapping the whole experience up. And they really end with a bang. And so that was one of the things we got to experience that day as well.
Are you talking about the farewell dinner or
That-
after the farewell dinner?
Well, before the farewell dinner, we had kind of like a slideshow. So it was kind of like a farewell kind of presentation. And so the entire time you're on the trip, the guides both have point and shoot cameras and they're taking photos of everything. So everything special that you get to do, they will have you pose next to and take your picture. And so they kind of use these to create kind of like a little movie slideshow to recap your entire trip.
God, bring your tissues.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
But it's so whirlwind that you kind of need that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Remember when we did that?
Exactly.
Even though it's only been 5 days, it feels like it was a like 2-week long trip, you know?
Because you fit so much in.
Yeah. And then, so after that, after the presentation, we went over to Carthay, and that's where we had our farewell dinner. So I don't know.
Carthay Circle Restaurant.
Okay,
Carthay
now that's
Circle.
new
That's
also.
new and different.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. You guys
Yeah.
did a chance
It was
to do that.
amazing.
Now the slide presentation isn't at the restaurant.
That is at Grand Californian. It was kind of in a conference room.
That's actually where dinner used to be.
Oh, okay.
So it was nice. You got back to the hotel, you got a chance to change for dinner, go down, watch the presentation, then walk over as a group to the park.
That's
Very
awesome.
nice. That's new.
And of course, we ended our experience with a private viewing or a private area of World of Color.
Yeah.
Which is always.
And it's not only a private area; it's a prime private
Oh,
area.
yeah.
It's like
Dead
the
center.
perfect spot.
And this
Really
is
is.
one of those things that when I had seen the videos when it first came out, I'm like, no, this just isn't doing anything for me. And I know Pete and I had the discussion. And so when it finally happened, and I went, wow, it doesn't translate well in video, but when you see it in person, it really is worth going and seeing World of Color.
I agree. I looked at it and I thought, huh. It was pretty amazing.
Nothing. I'm not doing anything.
You're not doing it very quietly.
Well, Sean talked about something that was they do on every adventure, which is a slideshow, and they try to, sort of foster this idea that you've been a family and you've
Right.
traveled together. So that's something that's unique to Disney and Adventures by Disney. The other thing they do is every day you get a pin.
Yeah.
And you get a pin that sort of talks to you about, that sort of represents what you did that day.
The theme of the day.
The theme of the day. So that's another part that's exclusive to Adventures by Disney. Is you get a Disney pin, which is awesome.
I love those pins.
You get the lanyard. I see on here there's one with a special pin with a 2 on it. When you go on multiple trips, now they give you an
they?
additional pin
Oh,
with
okay.
how many adventures you've been on.
They kind of open up the welcome dinner with recognizing the people that have traveled with Adventures by
Okay.
Disney before.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think at this point they're giving Pete multiples to add up to his
Right,
original.
Right, yeah, they don't make them
10 and a smaller one, so that they can just.
Here you get a 5, a
just
4,
not
and a
gonna-
3.
Well, is there anything else we want to talk about to kind of sum this up, to kind of the general feeling?
Yes, if you want to book it, write to Kevin at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com and I will book you on one of these trips.
In addition to the trip and stuff and being able to work with Kevin, Dreams Unlimited Travel offers a discount on future trips, whether it be a gift card or money off of a trip. So that's our way of helping you afford these trips.
And for those of you that are Disney fans, Disney history fans, Disney movie fans, Disney theme park fans,
Hollywood history fans.
Hollywood, all of that stuff that we've talked about today, that is what this trip is all about. It is the hardcore Disney fan experience. It's everything that you would want as a Disney fan.
I know you guys didn't start with this trip, but this is almost like Disney's version of crack. You
Yeah.
take this trip and it's affordable and it's in the United States, so it's not as hard to travel. But as soon as you take this trip, you want to go on others.
Other
Yes.
Adventures by Disney.
I want to go on all of them now because look how cool it was. So it's kind of like you're going to be hooked once you do one.
And I would also say that even if you don't have a whole lot of Disney knowledge, you're going to come home wanting to know more
Right.
about Disney. So don't be afraid that you're going to be with people that, know more than you do. When it's all said and done, everybody's gotten something different out of
Yep.
it, and we've all enjoyed it. How awesome it was.
I have a question, financial question. So you book the trip, you got to pay. What kind of deposit is it?
Every Adventures by Disney requires a $300 per person deposit.
Okay.
The deposit is good for 14 days.
How long do I have? Oh, okay, there we
It's
go.
after 14 days, your deposit becomes non-refundable. And your final payment is due 90 days prior to departure.
Okay.
There's also some specifics about trip insurance that's a little funky.
And
Kevin
it's-
knows all those details,
Okay,
so he'll help you.
The nice thing is, people are allowed to make payments. You don't have to make a lump sum payment.
Right.
I have people who make $200 payments every paycheck. I have people who save it all up and make one lump payment at the end. So it's very flexible.
Okay.
I think the one thing, too, that I would recommend, even though I'm not an expert, but judging by our group, most of the people who were on it came about a day or two early to do stuff in Hollywood, and then they stayed a couple days after. At least for Disneyland, you're going to get fast passes. You're going to get to go on rides. But this isn't about going on rides. This is about walking backstage and seeing those things that you can't see anywhere else.
I think that's a really good piece of advice for any trip. I always suggest to people that you arrive at your destination a day in advance.
Yeah.
Right.
We all know that travel, especially airline travel, it's frustrating, it's tiring, you need a day to decompress before the trip actually starts, because no one ever believes me, but these are very, very full days.
Oh, they are.
Yes, they are.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for our Backstage Magic discussion. As John pointed out, this was not our first portion of our trip. This whole Beyond the Parks series has been a lot of fun, and it was a great adventure. And I do want to mention that I wish Pete was here to share his experience with us as well. But for those of you listening, we are going to end right here, and we hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time. But for those of you watching with us live, we do have a video for you that Craig has put together, and it kind of encapsulates this whole Beyond the Parks experience that we had in Hawaii, Alaska, and on the Backstage Magic. Just a little disclaimer, it is a longer video than we usually play on the show, but we hope you stick around, we hope you watch it, and we hope you enjoy it. So thanks, everyone. Have a great week.
Bye.